For 25 years, I was in a rigid routine. I'd work in the mornings, come home to my wife later in the afternoons, and we'd spend our evenings together eating her home-cooked meals and watching TV until night came and we would go to bed. Then we would do it all over again. Sometimes I would doubt our life together. A nagging voice in the back of my head told me I didn't do enough for her, that we should want for more. But then I'd wake up and hear her singing softly as she cooked our breakfast, and any doubts I had would fade away. We could have kept going like that forever, but we never got the chance. I'm sat here alone now in our bedroom, huddled up in a blanket, typing on my laptop, and eating some awful fast food. I can't bear to leave this room. I know that if I open that door and walk down that hall, I'll pass what used to be our kitchen. What remains is just an open, lifeless room. The cabinets had to be torn out and the floor ripped up from the damage. I arranged for some good men from the church to take the stove one day. I couldn't bear to be there when they took it. I left the front door unlocked and hid like a coward until I heard them leave. I already burned through my bereavement leave, but I haven't gone back to work. I just sit in our room and listen. I keep hoping to hear her voice again. Instead, all I hear is silence. The house is so quiet, so still. And in those endless spans of silence, my mind fills in the void with harsh memories. The thoughts eat away at me like acid. Sometimes it's questions about what I could have done differently. Other times it's like a film on repeat, the scenes playing out relentlessly. On the worst days, in the cold silence, the thing that consumes my mind are those final moments I had with her. A week before it happened, she told me what was wrong. It was a warm Monday afternoon and I had just gotten home from work. She was in her usual place, cooking over the stove. The sound of sizzling pan-seared steak filled my ears. The room was slightly smoky and it smelt heavenly throughout the house. I could feel the heat as I walked into the kitchen to greet her. She was wearing some jeans and that tan cardigan she liked over her blouse. I hugged her, head over her shoulder, and asked how she was doing today, like I did every day. I expected her to say something sweet in her usual way. Instead, she surprised me when she said, "I'm cold." I laughed at her. I thought it was a joke. I mean, it was a nice 84 degrees outside, and it was noticeably hotter in the kitchen. I genuinely thought she was just pulling my leg, but no. She didn't laugh back, didn't even smile. She rolled up her sleeve and showed me her goosebumps with a look of tentative concern. We figured she had a weird fever. She didn't feel particularly warm, but we decided to treat it like a fever anyways, and I put her to bed after dinner, skipping our TV shows that night. She got under the covers, despite me telling her not to, but I let it slide. As I was leaving the room to let her rest, I remember how she grabbed my hand and she asked me if I would stay for a prayer. Church had always been more of her thing than mine, but I didn't mind. I thought she might feel better if she did, so I closed my eyes and let her pray. "Dear Heavenly Father, hallowed be thy name. You are the Father of health and wellness, and Satan is the father of sickness and suffering. I pray that this sickness will leave my body and I will feel your warmth once again. In your name I pray. Amen." She seemed satisfied and I wanted to give her space, so I left and tended to the house. I washed the dishes, cleaned up the kitchen, and watched some of our shows without her. I remember feeling lonely that night. Her absence felt like a tear in a winter coat. When I came to bed, I was relieved to have her by my side again. I was sure that in a day or two this fever would pass and she'd be right by my side again. But this wasn't a fever. Our routine was disrupted into something new, something worse. Now I'd come home and go straight to our bedroom to see her. She insisted on turning off the fans and keeping the door shut. When I opened the door, my glasses fogged. I'd find her, kept under more blankets than I remembered giving her, usually sleeping. I'd sit by her and ask her how she was feeling. Each day she gave the same one-word answer, each more disheartened than the last. Cold. The task of cooking fell on me, and I thought I couldn't go wrong with some chicken noodle soup. It was supposed to help, but I'm no cook. There was always missing something I couldn't give it, but we ate it all the same. I learned I had to let it cool before I gave it to her. Otherwise she'd scald her mouth. Not that she seemed to mind. After dinner, I would clean up, watch some shows alone while she went back to sleep. Then I'd join her in bed. I tried to snuggle up to her, to give her some of my body heat. I tried to take the cold from her, but after a time I gave up. She was too cold to hold on to for any long period of time. I wish I held her anyways. Sometimes I would press my hand against her cheek, then her forehead. Sometimes she pressed back against my hand. This sickness had affected her physically, but under those blankets, behind the shivering, somewhere beyond the cold, the woman I loved was in there, fighting. The earliest doctor's appointment we could get was Thursday morning. I took some time off work in order to make the appointment. That morning was a relaxing 75 degrees, but looking at her, you wouldn't know it. She wore a heavy coat and sweatpants with long johns underneath. A scarf and beanie hid her face from the world. Hidden behind the layers, her eyes looked tired. She got looks from the staff and patients alike in the clinic. I checked her in, and she did her best not to chatter her teeth as I filled out the forms. In short, the clinic was a bust. They took her back there and did a standard checkup. Nothing was out of the ordinary according to them. They chalked it up to poor circulation, wrote a prescription, and they sent us away without any other consideration. I made sure she took the medicine, but it didn't help her. I took a full day off work that Friday and did what I could. I came back from the store that morning and began to haul in what should have helped. I set up a space heater, draped a thick winter blanket over her, and assured her that I had been looking up recipes for some better soups. Despite all this, I heard her shivering as I closed the door. She laid in there all day, only getting up to use the restroom, but that was getting less frequent. I would sit in there for 10 minutes or so at a time before having to leave again. The room was too hot now, and I couldn't stand to be in there for any longer than I was. I checked on her often, sat when I could, and when I was out, I would call the doctor again and explain that she was getting worse. She was getting colder. There was nothing they could or would do. Friday night came and went. More soup, more tea, more dishes. I had to take to sleeping on the couch, as our room was far too hot for me. Every couple hours I woke up alone, and when I did, I would walk over to the door and listen for her. Once I heard her shivering. Another time she was snoring. Another, she was crying. Saturday morning, I woke up later than normal. I began the new routine. Start the coffee, start the tea, start breakfast. It was quiet that morning. Lifeless. I could never cook like her. She had an aura about her that filled the house with energy when she cooked. Most mornings she'd be cooking, humming along to some song I never knew, without a care in the world. She was happy. Maybe that's what my dishes were missing. Everything I cooked was made with worry. I put it all on a tray and took it to our room. After a night without her, I was determined to bear the heat and sit with her for longer. When I opened the door, I found our bed empty, 7 blankets strewn about the room, thrown off without care, leading to our bathroom. The shower was running. Steam billowed out of the bathroom and bled into our bedroom from behind the closed door. I put down the tray and knocked, then again, then with more urgency. Each time I got no answer. I had begun to sweat. The heat from the room was bad enough, but the steam from the bathroom felt scalding. I tried the door, but it was locked. I had to think, but the heat was starting to take its toll on me. I felt sapped, exhausted. How could she stand this horrible room? I yelled for her, and when I heard no answer, I used what strength I could muster and kicked the door. Once, then twice. Then the door gave way. The heat hit me like an oven, and inside was my wife. I found her in the shower, burned and shivering. She was sat on the shower floor with the water hitting her back. There was a big red circle where the water had burned her. Soft chunks of skin flowed off her back and toward the drain. I learned that she had turned the temperature on our water heater as high as it would go, and then turned the shower on and sat. She didn't know how long she was in there, or how long she would have stayed if I didn't get her. All that she knew is that she was cold. I got her out of the shower. She fought me till I mentioned the blankets. Then she let me guide her back to bed. I dressed her, wound the best I could with what we had, and turned the water heater back down. Cooler than before. She got really low after that. She refused to go to the clinic again, or anywhere for that matter. The heater and blankets were at home, and that's where she demanded to stay. That night, I sat with her. Sweat stained my clothes, but I paid it no mind. My wife needed me. I was at a loss, and I felt desperately powerless to help her. I prayed with her. I thought it's what she needed, and it's all I had left to try. I prayed like she had. I asked God for forgiveness and healing and warmth. I prayed with conviction. I nearly believed it. Maybe I just needed to believe in something. I knew that she believed in it, and if nothing else, I hoped that she would feel comfort in the prayer. When I stopped praying, she began her own prayer. What she prayed, I can't repeat. What I can say is that the cold had reached her heart and corrupted her faith. She said things I never thought I'd hear from a good Christian woman like her. She denied God and His forgiveness. She promised her soul to the devil, as long as Satan promised that the fires of hell were warm. Any enthusiasm, any hope she had was gone. The cold had taken it away. I slept on the couch that night. That Sunday morning, I woke up groggy. The couch had not been treating me well, and the anxiety had treated me worse. I got up anyways and headed to the kitchen. It was time for the routine to start again. She needed me. More coffee, more tea, more breakfast that doesn't quite taste right. When I got to the kitchen, I heard that familiar humming, that comforting sound of cabinets and drawers opening and shutting. She was back, and she was cooking up something heavenly. It smelt like a ham steak, and I remember thinking that was a strange choice for breakfast, but I was just happy that she was feeling like herself again. She was wearing shorts and a tank top. She was reaching on her tiptoes for something deep in the cabinet. When I walked in to greet her, "What's for breakfast, dear?" She didn't acknowledge me. She just kept looking in the cabinet above the stove. I looked at the stovetop and saw that the burner was on. As she was reaching further back into that cabinet, she had placed her hand on the burning cast iron pan, and it was sizzling. The adrenaline hit my blood like cement. She found what she was looking for. Before I could comprehend what was happening, she had doused herself in cooking oil. She turned to face me. In her mangled hand, she held a matchbox. In her good hand, she held a match. In an instant, she and the kitchen were engulfed in flames. She didn't scream. She didn't flail around. She sat on the ground, arms hugging her knees to her chest. Among the crackling of the fire, I heard her teeth chatter. She shivered while she burned. My wife is gone. My life is gone. I have nothing but the memories and this feeling I can't shake. I'm cold.